For months, astronomers globally had been tracking 3I Atlas, the third interstellar visitor to come into our solar system following Oumuamua and Borisov. Its bizarre green tail and erratic behavior had impressed both scientists and hobbyists. Most experts thought they knew what they were seeing, a lone enigmatic object flying by the sun on its solitary journey through space. But in the early morning hours of September 19th, exactly at 2:00 a.m. UTC, it all changed. A Chilean amateur astronomer took something that would redefine the principles of astronomy, 9 tiny lights around Atlas, traveling in perfect synchrony, like glowing sentinels circling around a central lantern. In short order, the James Webb Space Telescope, Hubble, and the Very Large Telescope verified the observation. 3I Atlas was not alone. It was accompanied by 10 glowing objects, all moving together, all radiating the same spooky green light. What scientists would learn shortly about these companions would rock the foundations of space science. At first, specialists wrote off the sighting as a mere imaging glitch, a light trick, digital noise, or cosmic ray interference. But the Webb's infrared information and Hubble's sharp optics left little to the imagination. The 9 minor objects existed, with each of them having the same speed, path, and distance from the central object, radiating the same green color. Spectral analysis was even more astounding. These were not sections chipped off Atlas but independent bodies with the same metallic compositions, nickel, cobalt, and other unusual alloys that occur infrequently in comets. More astonishing was their energy emission. Whereas Atlas had itself emitted an inexplicable 10 gigawatt thermal radiation, its companions emitted nearly 20 gigawatts per object, housed within bodies small enough to fit within a city block. That amount of power, sufficient to power whole nations, simply could not have been produced naturally. Nature does not create stones that function like reactors. But if the objects were constructed, if they were probes, then the implications were unfathomable. What really disturbed the scientists wasn't necessarily the energy, but the suddenness with which they appeared. Telescopes around the world, professional and amateur, had been monitoring Atlas around the clock. Missions such as NASA's Juno, the Parker Solar Probe, and others on their way to Mercury and beyond had been monitoring them. None of them were able to see these companions in advance. As reported by Harvard's Avi Loeb, the 9 bodies didn't drift into sight, they appeared in an instant, in a fraction of a millisecond, quicker than the blink of an eye. Our detectors weren't quick enough to catch their arrival. For those who witnessed it, it was as if the universe had undergone a sudden shift. 1 second, a lone traveler, the next, a procession. Theories poured in. Maybe Atlas had sent its own probes as it approached the inner solar system, or perhaps they had been sitting there in wait, activated by gravity or solar radiation. Others theorized they had been sneaking up on us, awaiting a signal to emerge. Whatever, their appearance was no coincidence. It was intentional. Astrophysicists attempted to simulate the power readings of the companions, but all computational simulations were unsuccessful. Temperature, density adjustments, even exotic fusion models were all tried, with none providing a solution. The equations just flat refused to balance. There was no physics known to science that could pack that much energy into such tiny bodies. Antimatter, dark matter catalyst, and advanced containment field theories were discussed, but none could account for the accuracy. Every one of the 9 objects emitted more energy than the core body, indicating they were constructed to approach closer as Atlas kept its distance. These weren't haphazard escorts, they seemed to be frontline agents, stronger than anything humankind had ever imagined. The epiphany was horrifying. These things were crafted. They were being controlled. As images and data circulated online, ordinary people asked the question scientists wouldn't. Why had no one told us? Why did it take an amateur astronomer to reveal what the most advanced space agencies supposedly missed? NASA and the European Space Agency offered only vague acknowledgments of ongoing observations, carefully avoiding details. But leaked memos told a different story. Behind closed doors, emergency sessions took place at the Pentagon, ESA headquarters, and China's National Space Agency. Classified briefings covered everything from interception missions to planetary defense protocols. Private companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin were approached quietly regarding rapid launch capabilities. European officials revived old plans for deflecting asteroids. And yet, to the public, quiet was kept, soothing words asserting there was no evidence of threat. But quiet, in such times, speaks volumes. If 9 powerful objects had indeed materialized alongside Atlas, governments already knew more than they cared to voice. When Avi Loeb had examined the unexpected arrival of the companions, he had suggested a chilling hypothesis, the mothership hypothesis. In his opinion, 3I Atlas may not be an isolated interstellar body at all but an enormous carrier sending out smaller probes as it traveled to its destination, in our solar system. The 9 companions were not flotsam, but Vanguard scouts dispatched ahead of time as the parent craft held back further out. This would account for their power output, coordinated flight, and collective materialization. The implication was mind-boggling. These probes had a mission. Were they charting worlds, prospecting for resources, or merely watching Earth? One thing, Loeb maintained, was certain: probes of this complexity do not materialize by chance. They exist only when they are supposed to be viewed. Not everyone among astronomers was in agreement. Some held fast to the belief that Atlas had simply crashed into some other interstellar boulder, shattering into smaller pieces but continuing on the same path. But this hypothesis fell apart by itself. Collisions don't create similar energy emissions. They don't create synchronized motion or similar metallic makeups. Natural debris does not emit 20 gigawatts per fragment and move with coordinated accuracy. Even skeptics started confessing the fragments seemed to move more like machines than shattered ice and stone. The evidence left just one explanation standing, and it was the one most scientists were afraid to say out loud. These things were built. Then the puzzle deepened. From another part of the sky, a new interstellar traveler, C/2025 R2, SWN, was discovered, bound for the same solar corridor. It was more than 100 times bigger and brighter than Atlas, with a tail 5 times broader than the entire Moon. It would pass perihelion, its closest approach to the Sun, within days of Atlas. 2 interstellar giants, arriving nearly simultaneously, with an armada of unseen companions. To most, it was no accident in timing. Some thought that SWN was arriving to intercept Atlas as a protector. Others thought the two were meeting as part of a joint operation, coming together to share energy or information. Historians noted that past records spoke of green-tailed comets showing up every 2,200 years or so, and human civilization had lived through them before. This time, however, there were no promises. The public speculated while the world powers moved secretly. Leaked documents revealed that emergency meetings were held in the Pentagon, ESA, and China's National Space Administration. Reconnaissance plans, interception plans, and even nuclear defense were written. China allegedly diverted funds from its Long March 9 rocket into developing a high-speed interceptor. The ESA considered revisiting concepts for its abandoned Don Quixote asteroid mission. Private industry was quietly approached to provide rapid response launches, but publicly NASA was mute. ESA brushed off questions, and the White House released only one guarded comment. Asterisk, we are aware of the situation and monitoring it. Asterisk. That silence supplied world paranoia. When the most influential institutions react to a cosmic occurrence with secrecy and not with openness, it means that the truth is already out of control. What unsettled experts the most was the velocity of the companion's appearance. Based on Harvard's calculations, the 9 bodies manifested in less than 1 millisecond, roughly 30,000 times quicker than a blink. No natural phenomenon could ever achieve that. Comets break apart slowly, over hours or days. Asteroids disintegrate into dust and fragments. But 9 symmetrical, energy-filled objects coalescing in pristine configuration within 1,000th of a second? That wasn't nature. That was deployment. Speculation ran wild as to their function. Were they probes, scouts meant to reach planets while the mothership remained far off? Their huge power output was logical if they were constructed to survive planetary fields and atmospheres. But some worried something sinister. 20 gigawatts in such compact structures was weapon-grade energy. Were they extractors, meant to strip resources or energy? Or worse, sentinels, to destroy the obstacles before the final craft arrived? No communication meant no answers. And silence, as ever, breeds fear. Historians jumped in shortly after, pointing out that China, Babylon, and Europe all had ancient records speaking of unexplainable green stars that would fracture and reform, signaling disruption every 200 years. Maybe mankind wasn't experiencing first contact, but the return of something that had come previously and left its stamp in myth and scripture. We are not the first culture to observe this, only the first to be able to comprehend it. That alone was frightening. Behind closed doors, there was accelerated mobilization across the world. Defense satellites were retuned. Reconnaissance probes were reprogrammed. Agency communications went black. Reports were emerging that China was speeding up its planetary defense program, Europe had recommenced its kinetic interceptor project, and the United States had called emergency committee meetings in both NASA and the Pentagon. Time was not, however, on the side of humanity. Atlas and her ships were bearing down on their solar meeting, with no time to construct new defenses. If they were hostile, Earth was already in trouble. If they were not, then the very secrecy was the biggest warning. Next, subtle anomalies began to sweep across the solar system. Magnetometers picked up rhythmic pulses correlated to Atlas's orbit, repeating every 43 seconds, like a heartbeat. Seismic detectors in Antarctica, South America, and Asia picked up slight quivers with no natural explanation. Migrating animals, whales, birds, even insects, started changing their migratory patterns. Synchronization was too seamless to ignore. Earth's magnetic field seemed to be singing along with the convoy. That our world might be being tuned could no longer be avoided. Then arrived the most spine-tingling revelation. A focused radio energy burst from one of the friends hit the moon, and this was aimed at an area famous for mascons, heavy gravitational anomalies lying beneath its surface. These anomalies had fascinated scientists for decades and hinted at abnormal mass concentrations. Today, for the very first time, they were being activated. The message was pulsed, modulated, nearly coded. Others started to consider whether the moon was not just a satellite, but a latent node in an old system revived by these visitors. The moon may never have been all ours. As proof piled up, governments doubled down on secrecy. NASA withheld Webb's raw data, ESA ducked every question, and China's silence became deafening, although rumors of secret launch preparations did continue. The White House echoed its one sentence, * we are aware and monitoring the situation. * for the public, only amateur astronomers were providing real updates. But even their results were occasionally scrubbed from online forums. The silence of authority had become the loudest confirmation. Last but not least, orbital analysis determined the most chilling fact yet. 3I Atlas, its 9 friends, and approaching SWNR2 were all about to align in mid-October, their nearest solar passes coinciding within 50 million kilometers. That is impossible by accident. It was planning. A rendezvous. And it would be happening during the short solar blackout when our telescopes are blinded by the sun. By accident or by design, humanity would not be able to see the crucial moment. We have looked up at the sky for centuries and dreamed of dragons, omens, and fire banners. But what the James Webb Telescope, the Very Large Telescope, and millions of backyard stargazers have now imaged is not myth, it is real. 3I Atlas is no longer alone. It is accompanied by 9 design partners, emitting impossible strength and coordinated intention. 10 star-traveling bodies are currently making their way through our system, gliding with precision, projecting energy towards the moon, and vibrating in harmony with Earth itself. Something remarkable, and maybe inevitable, is taking place above us. If these are probes, they are not here to roam. They are here to act. Their positioning, their coded rhythms, their chilling synchrony, all of it indicates an ongoing mission. Couple that with the arrival of SWNR2, 100-fold bigger, and the quiet of our institution starts to seem less like prudence and more like restraint. They know. They have always known. And now, as a fleet of 10 synchronized objects cuts its way through our heavens, one option is left. Maybe they are not moving through at all. Maybe, after thousands of years of anticipation, they have come for us.